Hi, I'm Gilbert Thurston, the lead pastor of Exponential Church. 14 years ago, God called my wife Lisa and I to take a massive leap of faith, a step of faith, if you will, by leaving behind a church that we loved and people that we loved in order to move here to Harrisburg in order to plant Exponential. Now, to be honest with you, I never wanted to be a church planter. I never even wanted to be a lead pastor in my life, but yet when God calls you to do something, you've got to do it. And that's where we find ourselves today. He's calling us to do something equally just as life-changing and crazy, and that is not to just leave Exponential ourselves, but to actually close Exponential Church. Now, I know that brings up a lot of questions, and that's what I want to address here in this video. So let me back up a little bit. God has always spoken to me through sort of open doors. So whether it was businesses that I had, or then in the churches that I've pastored at and the ministries I've been a part of, I've always been really happy doing those things and thought I would do those things for the rest of my life. But then God always has other plans, and he opens up like this incredible door and he says, I want you to go through this. And it's always been hard to leave where we were at. But when God again calls you to do something, you've got to do it. So God's been this God of open doors for me. And so that's again how we started Exponential, was through this incredible open door that was undeniable that we were supposed to move here to start the church. And in 14 years we've been able to do some incredible things, dozens and dozens and dozens of people that have been baptized, lives that have been changed right here, not just in the Harrisburg area and in our partnership with other ministries in the Harrisburg area, but then our partnership with our sister church down in Haiti and our sister church that we now have in Costa Rica as well. Just been absolutely amazing. But one of the things we've also noticed during our journey is that God has closed a lot of doors on us. In fact, about a year and a half ago, our worship pastor, Bill Butler, and myself, we were talking about this. It's man, it just seems like God just keeps closing door after door after door after door. What's going on? And it was then that we started to discuss, wait a second, is God actually speaking to us through a closed door? Instead of open doors, is it him closing doors saying, hey, I want you to hear this? And we've just actually been missing his voice. And so we started talking about that and praying about it and just continuing to look for, is God closing doors on us, or are we hearing this? And so this past February, Bill and his wife Megan, Lisa and I, we were able to go down to Costa Rica together to do missions and had a wonderful week there. But it was also a chance for the four of us to be thinking and praying and just discussing what does not only the future of Exponential look like, but what do our own personal futures look like as well. And we decided after that trip, let's give it one more good shot here. Let's really make a push for Exponential to continue on, or at least under our leadership for it to continue on. And so I had heard of this company called Church Candy that was relatively new. Now, let me tell you a little bit about that, because it's going to help to make this make a little bit more sense. Church Candy was started by a guy down in Texas who cracked the algorithm on Facebook's advertising. Basically, he first of all helped his dad's chiropractic business just to explode with growth. Then they helped their chiropractic friends, all their businesses explode with growth. And then they got to thinking, well, wait a second, would this work for our church? And so they started to apply the principles, and their church exploded with growth. And so then they started this company called Church Candy. That was just 2 years ago that they started. They now have over 20 full-time employees. So this tells you that this is really working for churches. And so in February, we had an extra bit of income that was coming into the church. And, financially as a church throughout the 14 years, we've been able to be very, very generous and bless people. But we've always been sort of break even when it comes to budget. There's never a lot of money that's been in the bank. But we had some extra money that was going to be coming in here at the beginning of 2024. And it was hey, let's put that into this advertising. And so with the amount of money that we were spending per month, we should have been seeing about 20 new families every single month, at least coming to check out Exponential. Now, once they were here, then that'd be up to us then whether they would end up staying. But 20 is what we should have been seeing per month. And we did 7 months of advertising with them. And so that would be 140 families that we should have seen at least come check out Exponential. But we only ended up with 9 families. Not 140, we only had 9. To the point that Church Candy themselves was just pulling out their hair, because we're literally the only church this wasn't working for. And so they replaced our account manager probably about 4 months ago with 3 different account managers. So not just one person working on our account, 3 people working on our account. And they couldn't get it to work. And again, they're just going, why is this not working? Because it's working for big churches, small churches, black churches, white churches, Latino churches. It's working for urban churches, rural churches. It's working for everybody but you guys. And they couldn't figure out why. Well, Bill and I, we knew why. It was because God was again speaking to us through a closed door. And so now that we knew that there was a closed door for us, it was a thing of, okay, is that just for us that we need to leave? Or is it that God's actually calling Exponential to close? That was actually the third option for us. We didn't want that one to happen because we gave birth to this thing, 14 years ago under the power of the Holy Spirit and through God's direction. And so, we wanted it to continue on. And so we explored what would it look like for possibly somebody else to come in. And we explored what would it look like for us to partner with another church to actually become like a satellite campus for another church. And option 3 then would be, all right, let's talk to our denominational leadership and say, hey, we're leaving, what do you want to do with this as we head off? So most of you know, I just recently got back from a 17-day trip down in Costa Rica. And the first 8 days was for me to get some theological training for myself. There was time that I was doing some training while I was down there. And then my dad came down and helped me out with not only the training that I did, but then he and I got to spend some father-son time. So most of you know that those were sort of the 3 things that was going to be happening while I was down there. But there was actually a 4th reason for being there. And that was to be praying about what direction would God have for us to go. Is it finding somebody else? Is it partnering with another church, becoming a satellite campus, or do we just sort of walk away and allow the denomination to determine what happens after that? So those were the 3 options I was going to be praying about. Right before I left for Costa Rica, I was able to do a Zoom with some people. We have been talking about the potential of a couple year maybe transition of them coming in and helping out. And as I was talking to them on that particular call, they're like, Gilbert, we don't understand why, because it's like almost everything we want for a church and like vision wise and the property and the facilities that you guys have. But for whatever reason, God is saying, no, we're not supposed to do this. And they apologized. They were like, oh, we're so sorry. And I was like, no, this is actually an answer to prayer because it was another closed door. So then I get to Costa Rica and get off the plane, had a very nice lunch with the team that picked me up, settled into the house that I was going to be staying at. And we had about an hour until we had something to do. And so Lissandro, who I was staying with, he and his family said, well, why don't you go take your 17-minute nap? Because he knows me enough that I take my 17-minute nap. And so I did that. And then after I got up, I was like, well, I'm going to check my laptop and just see what emails may have come in. Literally the very first email that's there in my inbox is from a church that we have been talking about of becoming a satellite location for them. And it's from the senior pastor saying, man, it's a great opportunity, but we've talked about it, we've prayed about it, and it's just not a direction that we want to go. And so again, there was another closed door. Now keep in mind, I was there to pray about 3 things, or at least that's what I thought I was going to be praying about. Now there was just the one, and that was to talk to our denominational leadership about what the next steps would look like. So I really got to pray about that. And I came to a conclusion while I was down there of sort of the recommendation that I was going to make. And so when I got back, I was able to meet with our new executive director, Nate, and with our new director of church health, Dave Robinson, and just sort of explain to him why I thought that it was actually better for the overall kingdom of God to actually close Exponential, not just for Bill and I to step aside. So let me share with you briefly why that is. Most of you don't know that our denomination, the Church of God General Conference, next year celebrates their 200th anniversary. And all the churches have a very similar constitution and a very similar polity. That is how the churches operate. But when God was calling Lisa and I to plant Exponential, and we were still sort of exploring, is this really a God thing, or did we just eat some bad pepperoni pizza? One of the things we said was we wanted to try a constitutional structure that was completely different, but we would have to get permission to do that. And so we said, man, if God comes through on that one and they actually give us permission, we'll know that that's partly, God confirming that, yes, we're supposed to move to Harrisburg. And so at the time, Ed Rosenberry was our executive director for the entire denomination. And so he came in from Ohio and met with Lisa and I and shared with him what we wanted to do. And he's like, let's try it. And so we got special permission to have a constitution that's unlike anything else that the Eastern Regional Conference or the Church of God General Conference has ever had. And there's been great things about that, but there's been some struggles with that as well. But it's really not a structure that somebody else that was coming in would be able to sort of continue with, because it was really sort of to the vision that we had. And so that would have to change. Like the whole constitution of Exponential would have to change anyway, which you might as well then do a name change and all those types of things. But even that could have been, overcome. The next factor that plays into it is not only would Exponential be losing me as the lead pastor, but also Bill, our worship pastor. It's very odd for a worship pastor and a lead pastor to stay together as long as what we have. I think the typical relationship is about 2 years. We've been together for 14 years, and we didn't really know each other before this whole thing started. But not only have we become great ministry partners together, but we've become best friends, and our families are so close. And it was probably 4 or 5 years ago now that we sort of came to an unspoken agreement that if God ever called one of us to leave, that would be the sign to the other to leave as well. So not only would you be losing me as the senior pastor, you'd be losing Bill as the worship pastor, Megan as our children's director. My wife Lisa does our web and graphic designs and all that type of thing. Bill and I don't run necessarily the tech side of things, but we're sort of the brains behind all of it and have the know-how of doing everything tech-wise, and so you'd be losing all that as well. So if you brought somebody in, it'd be a new constitution, it'd be a name change, it would be like all the major sort of ministry things that happen would need new leadership as well. Again, all those things could probably be overcome. But there's another factor that plays into it as well, and that's from a financial standpoint. Again, we as a church have had an attitude of how generous can we be, and how do we live our lives, and as a church even, with hands wide open, saying, God, you've placed it here, and now we're going to give it back in return to others. And so we've always taught that. And so when it comes to sort of financial margin as a church, we don't have a lot of financial margin because we do all the ministries that we do, and then we try to bless above sort of and beyond that. And so in me leaving, it would be my tithes and offerings that would be leaving. It would be Bill and Megan's tithes and offerings that would be leaving. But then something else that not a lot of people know is that when we planted Exponential 14 years ago, I did a lot of fundraising. In fact, I raised a couple $100,000 to help with the launch of the church and to get us through that first year or two. And I just sort of had a feeling we would be self-sustaining pretty fast after we got started. And indeed, that's what happened. So I didn't do fundraising in the typical way of saying, give, so much a month for a year, or 3 years, or 5 years. I just asked people to give a one-time gift. What I didn't expect was that many people were just going to continue to give. And in fact, 15% of our annual income here at Exponential is from people that have never actually been to Exponential. It's people that I knew from around the country and around the world that believed in the vision that I had and the people of Exponential and what Jesus wanted to do here in Harrisburg. And they just kept giving month after month after month after month. So again, from a financial perspective, you'd be losing my tithes and offering, Bill and Megan's tithes and offering, and that 15%. So that would really put somebody into a difficult position. And so instead of doing that, it was, discussed, well, what would it look like to actually not like have a church struggling, but have a church actually be able to do a major blessing? And that's really what my heart is in this whole thing. Is we were able, back in 2017, I guess, to purchase a facility here in the Harrisburg area, and we got a really great deal on the whole thing. In fact, I call it our $1 million discount, because literally what we paid for not only the property and then all the renovations that we've done is about $1 million less than what the appraised value of everything ended up becoming. Now that was 2017, 2018, as that all happened. We all know what property prices have done since then. And so there's a real potential that the only debt that we have very little debt. We were within a couple years of having everything paid off here. So that's the only debt that we have. But once we get that paid off, there's really the potential that there's going to be $1 million, $2 million, maybe even up to $3 million that'll be left over then. And it'll be a chance for us then to be a blessing. Now, if you know anything about U.S. law and Pennsylvania law, you know that as a 501c3 organization, as we shut down, it has to go off to help other nonprofits in the same way. So nobody personally can benefit from the whole thing. So our plan is, as we then sell off all of our assets of equipment in the building and then the property itself, is to pay off our debts and then allow everybody that currently calls Exponential their home church the opportunity to be a blessing, because we've said that we are blessed to be a blessing. And so we're going to give them a grant of $500. And now they're not going to actually get the money. we'll do this in their honor and on their behalf. But $500 per person to the charity of their choice. There's so many great charities, not only here in the United States, but around the world. And there's a lot of great ones that we've partnered with here in the Harrisburg area. So we'll allow them to choose. Now, we will do some vetting on that just to make sure it's going to Bible-believing types of organizations. But we want our people to go out with a sense of that, wow, we really got to bless somebody as we went. We're also going to take the money and all the proceeds to be able to give some money to our church camp, give some money to our seminary, give some money to other nonprofits here in the Harrisburg area that we've been able to partner with. And then like our sister churches down in Haiti, we've partnered with them for many, many years, and we help as the sister church program to pay basically their entire budget for the year. And so we're going to set it up so that can continue on for years and years and years to come. Our sister church down in Costa Rica, there's a lot of big projects that they would like to be doing, so we're going to be able to bless them with some finances as well. So it's going to be really, really incredible, but that's still going to leave money that's left over. And so the real heart of what we want to do is to begin a foundation. And whether it's called the Exponential Foundation, or whether we name it after somebody that's passed away and we want to honor them through this foundation, we haven't quite figured out all those details yet. But with this foundation, any income that comes in every single year from it, other churches, other nonprofits will be able to apply for scholarships and grants that we can then bless them for projects that they may have or outreach event ideas that they have, and just really allow the life of Exponential, so to speak, to continue on beyond the 14 years that we met physically together as a church body. And really, isn't that what the word exponential is about? It's about this rapid expansion. It's about this growth that goes beyond what even can be counted or what can even be known. And so I'm praying that even beyond my lifetime, this foundation will continue to be a blessing to followers of Jesus until his return. So we're actually really, really excited about the potential to do something like that. Now, I know one of the questions that have also come up as I've been able to share this news over the last week or so with some people is, well, Gilbert, what's this mean for you? Because surely you have some open door, because you said God speaks to you through open doors, so there's some open door for you that you're going to go to next, right? And the answer is no. Lisa and I, we've been thinking about it as like a trapeze, that if you think about it, when the trapeze artist swings out, there's a certain point that they need to let go, but then there's always that bar that's out there that they can grab hold of. And that's what it's been for Lisa and I, is through the years we've been holding on to our businesses or whatever ministry we're in, and it's been great, but then God says, I want you to let go. And there's always been that bar right there that, okay, this is what I'm going to grab hold of now. But in this particular case, God is saying, I want you to swing out, let go, and you don't see anything. There is no bar to grab hold of at this point. And so we appreciate your prayers, because we're not sure what the next season of life and ministry is going to look like for us. Fortunately enough, we're at a personal place of financially that we don't have to rush that decision and just take the first open thing that comes along. We really want to see what it is that God would have for us next. And I'm 51 years old, and so I believe that Lord willing, I have another probably 10, 15 years of good, strong ministry that I'll be able to do. But we have no idea if that's going to be here in Harrisburg, if it's going to be somewhere else, if it's still going to be as a pastor, or if it's going to be getting a secular job. We have no idea. But we do know that God has great plans for us still to advance his kingdom. So again, we do appreciate your prayers for us personally. Pray for the Butler family, as this is a big shift for them. But then pray for the people of Exponential. Because obviously, not only is it their church, it's not going to be here. They're not going to have me as their lead pastor anymore. So they're going to have to transition off to other places as well. But we're believing and trusting for them that God has even better plans than if we would stay here as a church body in this Harrisburg region. So it's a big change. It's a big shift. It's sad in some ways, but yet it hasn't been a failure. There's been a couple of people who are like, don't think of this as a failure. I'm like, I'm not. It's been an incredible journey. God's changed me in a lot of ways. Again, so many lives of people have been changed over these 14 years. Every church has a season and a lifespan to it. You can't go and visit at least open churches from the book of Acts, right? So these were like the very first churches, like legendary churches. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those churches, but yet they still don't exist to this day. And so every church, whether it's in our case 14 years, some church plants only last for a year or two, and then some churches last for hundreds of years. So every church is eventually going to have an end to it. For us, our season happened to be 14 years, and we are so thankful for that. We're thankful to you and many of you that have been praying for us and supporting us in so many ways. It's just been an incredible ride, and we truly believe that the best is yet to come. And our mission statement here at Exponential is people helping people take life-changing next steps in their journey with and towards God. And so for all of us, this is just one more life-changing next step in our journey with and towards God. So again, thank you for everything. God bless you, and we appreciate your prayers.